The following program is presented by the Metropolitan Library Service Agency.
Hello, welcome to All About Kids, a program focusing on the interests of children and young people and some of the issues affecting them. Our guest today, Carolyn Hendrixson, Director of Congregations Concerned for Children, the Reverend Steve Richards of Good Samaritan United Methodist Church in Edina, and Evelyn Belmer, Daycare Administrator of St. Peter's African Methodist Episcopal Church in Minneapolis, will be discussing the activities of Congregations Concerned for Children. This is one of the fastest growing, most organized and effective child advocacy networks in Minnesota. Evelyn, Carolyn, and Steve, it's a pleasure to have you here today on All About Kids. You're all very involved with, I think, one of the primary child advocacy organizations in Minnesota, Congregations Concerned for Children. Carolyn, as the Director of Congregations Concerned, please give us a little background on what this organization is and what you do.
We're a program, first of all, of the Greater Minneapolis Council of Churches. And what we do is we try to direct the resources of religious congregations toward the needs of children, particularly those children who are experiencing poverty and child maltreatment. And so I brought Evelyn and Steve with me today because they're the people in congregations who are actually mobilizing the people in their congregations to reach out to children in need and to provide services and support and advocacy and voice for those children. And we started in congregations because we really feel that congregations are a place where people think about what they do and think about what needs to be done in the society. And they're a great place to start to raise up the needs of children. And really, churches and synagogues can be leaders in our movement to make children's concerns more prominent in our society.
So Congregations Concerned is an interfaith organization.
Yes, we are.
Christians, Jews. Mm-hmm. Evelyn, you're a lay person involved. You direct a child care center, and you're also advocating for not only the children that are at your center, but for the children in the entire community. What are some of the things that you do as an active member of Congregations Concerned?
Well, first I would like to say I was happy when the committee chose me to work with them because I thought it most appropriate. I am a member of the St. Peter's African Methodist Episcopal Church, and we do sponsor a child care center, which I'm at the time administrating the duties of the director. I think it's appropriate for the churches to belong to this group because the children are our future. And we have a daycare center, and I can see daily the things that are confronting parents and children in these trying times. So this committee gives me an insight on lots of ways to help our children and other children.
And Steve, as a pastor, obviously you have some of the same ideas about the church's active role in society, not just preaching a gospel on Sunday morning and then having all the members go out and go about their daily business without ever connecting what they hear to what needs to be done. How does your background give you the impetus for this kind of involvement?
Well, certainly we all have the responsibility to do something for kids, and there really are not many places that are equipped and ready to help respond to the needs of children. I think congregations tend to be a place where children are present, where we see children and adults together, and it's a place in which, based upon some of the experiences that we have together, living together and working together, that we try then to move beyond that and to help kids and help lift up those concerns. Not only within the congregation, but within the larger community.
I think it's interesting, and sometimes in society, churches or this whole idea of spirituality or translating spirituality into action is avoided in the media and avoided in society. And it seems to me that in Minnesota, Congregations Concerned has been at the forefront of legislative efforts and lobbying efforts which actually go far beyond church involvement, but actually are very, very hard-hitting and dramatic in getting issues out in front of the public and convincing elected officials that something needs to be done. Has this been an easy task for you to direct the organization this way?
It really has. What we've done is we've built up a network of child advocates in congregations throughout the state of Minnesota. And so we go out and talk to congregations about the needs of children and invite people to become part of our network. When we tell them what's happening to children, we say that the child poverty is increasing in this state. When we look at the metropolitan area like Minneapolis, and we see that over a third of the children live in poverty in our city, which is a higher rate than Los Angeles or Detroit or Washington, D.C. People in congregations are concerned and they want to do something, and so we give them an opportunity to become part of our network, to continue to be informed about the needs of children, and to provide them with opportunities to speak up to elected officials about changing some policies so that children and their families are no longer experiencing poverty. And it's really been, as I would say, an easy sell. People are ready to do something. They just need to be given an opportunity. We now have over 3,300 child advocates in congregations throughout the state of Minnesota. So if we are effective at the legislature, it's only because we have this strong voice throughout the whole state. We have child advocates in every legislative district in the state, and we're very excited about that. And these are people who respond when they get an action alert and it says we need to call because more families need child care assistance. 80% of our people will make that phone call. Just recently in Hennepin County, we called our advocates and asked them to call their county commissioners, tell them that we need to increase the child care sliding fee in Hennepin County by $1 million. Well, the county board increased that child care assistance by $500,000, which is significant, and we're very excited about that. And the vote was 7-0, and I think that the child advocates in Hennepin County had a lot to do with that.
And amazing, because lots of time voters don't think of the importance of contacting commissioners. We think of legislators or city officials, but not always the county. Well, you do a lot to keep people posted on these issues that affect children and family. You collaborate with Children's Defense Fund of Minnesota with a publication called Kids Count. And when I was reading your latest issue, it's frightening, the number of children in Minnesota who qualify for Head Start but aren't enrolled in the program, the number of families who could be receiving women, infant, and children vouchers and aren't, and the number of children who still need immunizations. And these are, when we talk about doing something for children in our society, we know the answers, and it's the will to and the money to do it.
I thought about this a lot, particularly during the Gulf War, when we were sending these highly technical planes over to the Persian Gulf. And I always thought about, what if we decided that instead of not fully funding Head Start and not fully funding child care and WIC, that we were not going to fully fund one of these airplanes. We just say, this time we're going to leave out the compass. You know, we don't do that for other things, but for children we do not fully invest in their needs. And we really need to change that, and that's why we're all here talking about that.
Steve, when you work with members of your congregation to get them involved in this, what is the reaction? Do they like the idea of their pastor being politically involved, being this kind of an outspoken advocate?
Well, I think our church is committed to children and to doing whatever we can for kids. It seems clear the kinds of messages we have in our culture is that kids don't matter and they don't count. And it really is our responsibility to step forward and say that we can do something to improve the lives of children and to do something so that they can have a better chance. I recall a couple of years ago, Carolyn came to speak to a small group of people in our church and talking about the needs of children, what Congregations Concerns for Children are doing, what it would mean to be advocates. And immediately as a result of that, they chose to become a partner church with a child care center in North Minneapolis, seeing that here was a way in which they could immediately try to make some difference to help support a struggling child care center. And so I think we've been looking for those types of places to actually get involved and to do something. And Congregations Concerned for Children provides the place in which we can learn about and discover those places to get involved.
Now, your church is in Edina, and what do you do as a partner with a church or a child care center in
Well, we have
Minneapolis?
done a number of different things, all the way to trying to provide some actual support, financial support, to doing some building repairs, to providing certain times of the year clothing or gifts that families need who are using the child care center. We try to do some support for teachers. We've even gone there to shampoo carpets and paint walls. So a whole variety of things. Whatever seems to be a need that's unmet there, we try to jump in and respond.
Well, it's one of the outcomes of this, too, of a better connection between people who live in Edina and people who live in another part of the city that isn't considered as affluent.
Well, as I said, I think we have a responsibility. Certainly, I'm from a community that has some advantages that other communities do not, and I think because of that, we do have the responsibility to do what we can to help persons in other parts of the metropolitan area.
Evelyn, as a person who is working directly with children, a few minutes ago you talked about seeing some of the real needs of the families. What do you think are some of the really crucial issues that are affecting parents with young children that you see on a daily basis in your child care center?
Long before I became a member of the council, St. Peter's African Methodist Episcopal Church saw a need about 30 years ago to have a place where working parents could leave their children in a secure and loving environment. And they established that daycare center there. We felt that working parents needed a place where they can keep their children at reasonable rates. So therefore, that we have that daycare center. These are parents who could not profit from Head Start because they needed full-time child care all day long, every day of the week. And I am happy to say, and now that I'm a member of the council, I've become aware of one of the programs of the council is to promote the partnership, as Steve just mentioned. And we have other congregations who do not have child care centers who support St. Peter's Child Care Center by being partners to us. And with the two groups working together, we have a quality, high-class child care area where parents can feel secure in leaving their children. And that is one of the things to me that is really, really important. If parents have to work, they need to have that feeling that their children are in a safe, caring environment, and we've tried to furnish that.
And that's one of the things we're hearing at political and social levels all over the country, the involvement of the church in helping make things better in the immediate community. Carolyn, what do you think are some of the systemic changes that have to happen to make things, I suppose it will never be perfect, but to make it possible for all children who need Head Start to be involved? Perhaps to have Head Start include the child care component, which it needs, or to have Head Start start earlier, and other sorts of things. What do we as a society have to be willing to do other than giving rhetoric and lip service?
Well, I think we have to be able to look long term at things. We can't always solve things in the short term. And if we look at things in a long-term vision, we'll see that unless we do invest in children today, we're not going to have the kind of society that we want in the future. People are very concerned today about crime and about violence. Well, if we don't invest in Head Start, if we don't make sure that all parents have employment and that their children are well cared for, then we're not going to have a safe, secure future. So we have to understand, we have to look at what's going to happen in the future and say we have to make some investment now. And we have to understand that we may not personally benefit from that. If I'm a politician, I may not get the credit that in 18 years there's a lower crime rate because these kids got Head Start or good nurturing care at St. Peter's AME Child Care Center. But we have to understand that that kind of investment is important. We're not going to get the payback right away. I also think we have to understand, we have to find a new way of looking at children and understand that we owe our children so much. I think that many, many generations in our country have had an ethic of self-sacrifice, and embarrassed to say that my generation does not have that ethic necessarily. We want things for ourselves now, and we can't do that and take care of our children. And so we have to maybe not have everything we need and invest more in our children. And so we have to begin to think long term. We have to think of others. We have to understand that what happens to everyone in the community will affect us, and again build up our awareness of being part of a community. So those kinds of ways of thinking have to happen, and those are, I would say, values that congregations of all faiths embrace, and that's why this is a good, we feel that we can lead this conversation, but that's what has to happen.
And that's difficult, as you suggested, for policymakers to think of something happening that they instituted, but it's years down the road. You have some other interesting ways of getting information out to the community on what's going on legislatively, again, to help the people who are involved in congregations make that phone call, do that advocacy. And I understand you've just received a grant which is going to enable you to have a hotline that will be available, and I'm going to pass this phone number over because neither of us could remember it.
We're very lucky because it wasn't a grant, it was a gift from a congregation, which is wonderful. St. Luke Presbyterian Church in Minnetonka has contributed money to our program so that we could set up a child advocates hotline. And in the metropolitan area, if people call 871-1473, they will get a recording that will tell them, number one, what the latest action they can take for children is. And then they will also, if they push another button, they will find out what happened to the last action that they took, the results of previous phone calls and letters. If they push another button, they'll find out what the events are for children. For instance, we're having a child advocates training in February, and so we let people know that that's happening. And then finally, they have an opportunity to leave information about a project they may be have for children in their congregation that's working well. Let us know about it so we can promote it in our newsletter, and other congregations can try the same thing. And so that opportunity is there for people now. We're very excited about it. We really think it'll get the message out. I mean, it costs a lot of money to send out a mailing to say, everybody call your county commissioner. Now we can simply put it on the hotline, and people can find out as soon as the vote happens what the result is too, and that's really helpful.
And again, that makes public officials much more accountable when they know that their constituents have access to this kind of instant information. You can't dance around the issues anymore.
We hope so.
We'll see what's happening. What do you think are some of the primary legislative issues that will come up in the February 1994 legislative session affecting children and families?
Well, things don't change, and it's the same issue that St. Peter's AME Child Care Center and Good Samaritan Church have been concerned about for years, and that's child care. Child care assistance is really critical. We say to everybody, go out there and get a job. But if I'm a single mom and I have 2 preschool children, and it costs $4,000 a year per child for child care, I can't walk out the door unless I have $8,000 from my salary to pay for child care. So child care is a barrier for my going to work. And I want to make sure that that's good quality child care too, not just anybody can take care of my children. I want trained people. And so I have to pay that kind of money. Well, you know, probably if I'm a young mom with not a lot of education, I'm not going to get a salary that affords me to do that. And so I would need to get child care assistance. And we have a child care fund in the state of Minnesota that provides assistance for low-income working families. But just like Head Start and just like WIC, we haven't appropriated enough money. There are 6,200 families on a waiting list for that child care assistance right now. Those are families who are ready to go to work, or may even be working and doing things that aren't so safe for their children's care. We have their names, their addresses. It's a demonstrated need, and we need to fulfill that. So
actually, when we talk welfare reform and get those people off the welfare rolls, we're actually being hypocritical, because there are over 6,000 families waiting to get back to work and to do something, to have the self-respect of a job, but yet we aren't willing as a state to put the money into a program that will help them.
Right. So when you talk jobs, you have to also, for families, you have to also talk child care in this day and age. It's a basic need, just like housing and food and transportation and heat.
Well, one of the other things that you mentioned was many of the primarily young women who are interested in going back to work don't have the education or the skill to get anything other than a minimum wage job. What do we as a society need to do to either help with the education or training, or to somehow see that there are jobs that include the benefits that's necessary when you're raising a family or taking care of yourself? Steve, you?
Well, it's really an attitudinal change. Part of what Carolyn was saying a little bit ago, the understanding that it really takes the whole community to raise a family and to raise a child. And we often look at, well, my child's being taken care of, or my child's needs are being met. And why doesn't somebody do something about the child down the street, or the child across the street, or this child I see on television? What's wrong with that child's parents? And I think what it really takes is for each one of us to see that that child is my responsibility. The child I see on television in trouble, or the child down the street, is my child, and I can do something to make a difference in that child's life. Part of it comes through advocating with government agencies and through the legislature, but the other piece of that really means getting to know the people around me and getting involved in organizations or congregations, or simply calling the hotline and discovering here's where I can get involved in trying to make a difference in a child's life.
It's a non-sentimental thing. Around the holidays, we all rush out to do with Santa Anonymous, which is wonderful, of course, but we're thinking, I think, of small children and teddy bears and those sorts of things. And by children, I'm assuming you would include teenagers who are homeless or runaways, or teenagers who are having problems, young people in the juvenile justice system. They're actually children in the eyes of the law, and I think in the eyes of most of us too.
And in our program, we've really focused on policies that are for the young children, and the reason for that is because we want to invest public policy and public dollars in prevention programs, so that children do not become part of the juvenile justice system, so children do not have to experience homelessness. I think about children, and you know, when I have a bad day, I know where I want to go. I want to go home and put my head on my own pillow, and I think about children who don't have a place that they call home, and what impact that has on their growing up. No place for them to go, and what that does not only to their family life, but to their spirits as children, and what that means. And if we are not responsive enough and responsible enough as a society to provide that basic need, and we just have to get that word out there and get that truth out there, because I think we all believe that people are ready to respond, willing to help. They just need to find a way to do it. And we try to make it simple for them.
Simple, just that phone call, and that phone call makes an enormous amount of difference. Steve, in your congregation, do you involve children in any of these advocacy things, helping children understand what it's like to help another child or another family?
I think we try to make an effort in getting children involved in helping others. We have had children that have actually gone to the child care center that we support, and some of them have gone there to read stories to other children, or to do puppet presentations, or a variety of other things, just to associate with children from another part of the community. Beyond that, we certainly spend some of our time, some of our effort getting children involved in doing some food shelf work, or serving meals to persons who are homeless. Just a variety of different things. That all of this helping is not something that comes later on. It's the sort of thing that we need to instill in children when they're young, so it becomes just a natural part of our lives, is giving to others and getting involved in trying to make a difference.
May I add that having our partners has helped our daycare center to survive at the rates that we keep low for the working parents. Because these partners give us a lot of payment in kind services which we don't have to pay for, it really, really helps that daycare center.
Who are some of your partners?
One of our partners is First Lutheran Church of St. Louis Park. We have a family, Mr. and Mrs. Margolis, and numerous other people whom I can't think of their names right now, and they're going to kill me. We have congregations, people from our own congregations who come down and offer services, such as the music teacher. We have readers and volunteer people who come in from time to time. And the church itself gives us the space. They pay for the electricity and other utilities that we have. So all of the services help us to keep that rate low so that we can keep the children of parents of low incomes without charging them a lot of money.
And it's much easier if everyone does something, then we're all part of a solution to a
Evelyn's Child Care Center also has a relationship with a child care center that's in a synagogue in St. Louis Park, where they provide some. If they're buying,
Marilyn Richter,
right?
got the name.
If they're buying a number of supplies or they have some extra things, they will share them with St. Peter's, and so that those two child care centers have a partnership as well.
Well, it's a very exciting concept, the whole idea of congregations concerned for children, and I think what you are doing is convincing society that there is a role for people who do have strong religious convictions to act out their convictions in a socially responsible way. And thank you very much for the work you're doing, and good luck in the 1994 legislative session, and thank you very much for being a guest on our program today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn Hendrixson, Reverend Steve Richards, and Evelyn Belmer. The advocacy activities of congregations concerned for children are appreciated. Thanks to all of you for watching All About Kids. Please tune in again.
This has been a presentation of Hennepin County Library in conjunction with the Twin Cities Metropolitan Library Service Agency. We thank you for watching, and we hope you visit your public library often.